Blessings, guys. Alex Angelo with you. Welcome to my channel and my page, and thank you for joining me tonight. So, today I want to talk about certain subjects that's been going on around astrology and tarot cards because some of the people who want to know how tarot cards and astrology actually works, and that's one of the reasons why I've decided to make this video for you so that you can actually understand in what manners and how do I work. Because those of you who follow me know that I'm an intuitive uh, reader, also spiritual life coach who uses the tarot and astrology in his practices in order to be able to provide the most insightful, the most, let's say, that clear kind of guidance and bring the clarity to the situations that my clients and people are just usually dealing with. So, because of that, there's a lot of questions about the tarot cards, and there's a lot of mysticism going on around the tarot cards, as well as astrology. Of course, there have always been people who've been skeptical about the tarot cards or about some sort of other spiritual tools that people are using, the spiritual people are using for the purpose of the guidance, as well as there have always been people who kind of are more spiritually open, are more ready to explore it, are more ready to experience it and go for that. So, but the thing is that regardless of which category person you are, it is clear that in life we all get to have the kind of certain situations where actually we do get to need some sort of spiritual guidance. We do need to get some sort of clarity on the situation that we're dealing with. Religion actually forbids tarot cards or any kind of types of prediction. But again, I want to say one more thing is that tarot card is not kind of a only prediction. There's a kind of logical way if you think about tarot cards, and if you read a lot enough literature about the tarot cards and about the esoterics, then you can come to a realization that actually tarot cards are not quite of a predictive tool, but they're more of a guidance tool. So that's why it's getting so rapidly um, trending in our world. The people are just using tarot cards for their practices. People are using tarot cards for their to gain the clarity from the situation, to gain the clarity from clarity of some sort of circumstance that they are dealing with. And that's the whole purpose of the tarot cards. That's the whole purpose also of the astrology, is trying to help us to understand our subconscious world, because the astrology and even the tarot cards, all the esoteric skills and the knowledge that we have around the world are mainly to help us to understand ourselves, to understand our behavioral patterns, and if needed, sometimes to work with them and accept them in order to be able to create change. So as I said earlier, one of the biggest reasons why I'm doing this video is I'm going to be trying to understand, to explain to you, excuse me, how I use tarot and astrology in my practices of life coaching in order to be able to help my clients. Of course, there are a lot of clients of mine who come to me to gain the clarity of their ongoing situation, which is kind of a service that I also provide. But there's also a deeper kind of service that I provide, on the which is an intuitive life coaching with astrology and tarot. So, because the tarot card again is deeply related to our subconscious, by the help of the symbolism of the cards, it can be any deck. It can be the Rider deck. It can be also Aleister Crowley deck. Any kind of deck that resonates, which symbols resonates with you and resonates with certain emotions, resonates with certain memories, resonates with certain things like that trigger some sort of emotion, is of course deeply related to our subconscious. So that's the whole purpose of the tarot cards. For example, if we take a look at the deck of the tarot cards, then we're going to see different kind of images coming from different authors, coming from different like painters and the artists, right? But and each artist tries to contribute something that belongs to them when they are drawing this card, something that resonates with their own world. Why? Because, as I said earlier, tarot cards is considered deeply subconscious tool. Or in other words, to say, to be more specific, tarot cards and astrology is a great tool to be able to connect our subconscious and to understand ourselves better. So a lot of people do ask me how the tarot cards work and why are they considered a predictive tool though. So there is a logic behind it, as I said earlier. The tarot cards can show us the most likely outcome of the made decisions. Once again, what makes the tarot card a predictive tool, it can show us the most likely outcome of the made decisions. Now let me break it down so that you can understand it better. Um, let's say that we all have psychological and subconscious behavioral patterns. And while we're growing up, then our patterns become who we are. Like basically, our behavioral patterns, our habits become who we are, and we become our habits. In other words, to say, bad habits, good habits, certain way of reacting to situations, certain way of dealing with situations, as well as certain emotional unavailability, let's say, or certain situations where we can find it hard to deal with, right? These are all kind of behavioral patterns that every human has. So when we are doing the tarot reading, when let's say that the client or the person coming to you asks you, I have been offered a great job and I'm trying to now understand whether I should actually switch my career path from the one that I have been for so many years, or I should stay there and not switch to this new lane that I've been offered, right? If you think about it, it's a very basic and life situation that anybody can have. So at this point, the intuitive reader or the life coach works with the deck, specifically puts all their concentration on the images and on the symbolism of the tarot deck. So at this point, what we're doing is this: we are kind of trying to incorporate the subconscious mind with the conscious mind to be able to understand the message from the higher self and bring it out to the person who is asking that. And of course, there is nothing demonic in that because it has nothing to do with any demonic powers. Tarot cards are only a great tool, as I said earlier, to connect our subconscious. It's just a beautiful deck with lots of different images in it, with lots of different symbolism, and very little details that actually an intuitive and a professional reader usually pays attention to. So going back to the question, like, and the person wants to know whether they should stay in this job or not. So at this point, we actually do our spread. I mean, I have my certain spreads that I use during the work with my clientele, and I believe other tarot readers or other astrologers, other spiritual practitioners have their own methods of being able, or own spreads that they use when they're doing their readings, right? So, and after I lay out the spread, I try to pay attention to the symbolism and also let that symbolism really reach out, not to what I think rationally, but what kind of triggers it's given me on a subconscious level. Whether I can clearly see and feel that it's going to be a good decision for our client using our intuition, or it's not. And of course, the cards can show different things. Let's say that the cards can show that if you stay in this current career, you might be fine, you might have enough stability, but at this point, the artistic or the creative side of your personality or may not be that much evolved. And so what it may happen is that probably if you're staying in this job, you're going to make a lot of money because you're really good at what you're doing, probably. But the problem is that there's no that such thing as passion in this job. So that's why it can be like your stability soars, but if when it comes to doing something that you love doing, probably in this matter, we can't see that and we can't sense it. Whereas on the other hand, the other cards show us that if you decide to switch your path, maybe at the beginning it may be a little bit risky for you and scary for you, and of course because it means just stepping out of the comfort zone, so which may be very difficult for you to deal with or to accept at some point. But guess what? There, we like most likely see the more creative side of your personality uh, coming out, the more of an emotional happiness and joy involved with the situation, with the process. So at this point, actually, we offer this to whatever we see from the symbolism of the cards and what we have been able to interpret it on an intuitive level. We bring that information to our client and we let that client make their choice. I mean, as a spiritual practitioner, I never ever force my clients or people that I work with to make certain choice, because at the end of the day, it is their choice. Like, again, Um, all I can do for you is just to show you the current options going on within your life and the situational options according to the tarot cards and the intuitive impulses. But of course, at the end of the day, the choice is always at your hands. So, in other words, to say this is just one of the little methods and one of the little just kind of explanations of how tarot cards actually can be very successfully used in life coaching. And in my practices, what I usually do is that after, for example, the example that I brought you is more was more like an individual situation about how the tarot cards work. But when it comes to using the tarot cards in life coaching, it works a little bit different. There, what we do is this: we first try to go through all the life areas of our clientele. We can use for that purpose the 12 astrological houses, which actually can be very easily interpreted. And and for those of you who know or who might be acquainted to astrology, there are 12 astrological houses, and each of, just like astrological signs, and each of those houses represent the certain area of life. So if we want to know, if we want to work with our clientele on a much of a more, like, let's say, that general level of their life, and they're trying to understand which area of their life might need more work, how to balance all the life areas, or how to be able to put their focus on the certain area of life. And of course, here, the life coaching techniques and life coaching methods can be very helpful, specifically with the use of astrology and the tarot cards. So what we do with the tarot cards is that we first analyze the current situation of that life area, and then again coming to a conclusion on an intuitive level what we actually sensed. We bring that information to our client, and then we ask them if they are happy with this current lifestyle, with the current circumstances and the situations that is happening in their life. If the clientele comes up with a thought that, no, I'm not happy and I'd like to change it, but I don't know where to start. So here where the work starts. Here we actually start using the tarot cards, and we start, again, as I said, I use my own methods of, spreads, tarot spreads that I use in my practices. And then we start actually kind of more, going deeper into the subject and see what the symbolism of the cards tell us. What may be the current options of being able to change the circumstance or change the situation, change our behavioral pattern towards the situation. How can this situation be transformed in general? As well as the same thing about the astrological life coaching. Well, with the astrological life coaching, it's a little bit different to tarot life coaching, because in tarot life coaching, we don't necessarily need to know your sun sign, your moon sign, and your rising sign, whereas in astrological life coaching, it is like a very important detail. So in astrological life coaching, let's say that the person comes over and they understand that they have this really big issues going on inside of them with their personality. They don't know how to put their potential out there. Like, they know that they may be quite talented, they may be like, they might have a lot of ideas, but unfortunately they just don't know where to start and how to be able actually to change their life and how to put themselves on the track towards their goals. So at this point, if we're using the astrological life coaching, as I mentioned earlier, we try to look into the sun sign and the moon sign of the person. Well, in general, there's a primal trait in astrology, which is consists of the sun sign, moon sign, and the rising sign. So the sun sign shows us, like, in general, ourself, like what our sign represents and what are the gifts of our sign. What are the behavioral patterns of our sign? Like, how we can recognize ourselves, and like how do we feel, like how we act and how we just generally, feel and represent ourselves. The second one is the moon sign, which is deeply related to the energy of the mother. By the way, the energy of the sun sign is deeply related to the energy of the father. Why? Because the sun is actually the ruler, and it's considered the ruler of all the celestial system in our current celestial galaxy, right? Like, solar system. So the moon sign, however, is deeply related to the emotional side, and that's why the moon express the moon signs. Our moon sign usually expresses what we feel, how we consume everything on an emotional level, how we express our emotions, how we deal with our emotions. And in general, it's, again, as I said, deeply related to the maternal energy, because the, like, where the discipline comes from the father energy, and the emotions come from the mother's energy. And of course, the last one is the rising sign, which is also quite important aspect of an astrological life coaching. The rising sign is usually the sign of how the surrounding sees us. It's like the mask that we wear of a certain behavioral pattern, and this is how people see us, this is how people experience us, this is how people find us, look wise, or in general, this is how they kind of sense you and what you demonstrate them in the society. So mainly for the astrological life coaching, we use the sun sign and the moon sign, because we try to understand at this point what specific gifts and the energetic gifts on a subconscious level might be given by the father's line or the father's sign, father's energy, and what the energetic and deeply emotional senses can be put into us by the mother line, let's say. Just an example. And of course, at this point, working with astrological life coaching, we don't necessarily use the rising sign specifically. Why? Because eventually, after the work is going to be done, and after certain sessions, when we're going to be working on the weaknesses and on the potentials of your sun sign and moon sign, the rising sign automatically kind of transforms. Like, because again, let's not forget, the rising sign is how people see us, and of course, how people see us depend on our behavioral pattern, how we behave. So I'm not talking about the look-wise only. Yes, look-wise, of course, we might represent certain signs, and we might have the features and the traits of that certain signs. But in general, if we're talking about the rising sign as the sign of how people see we behave, then that automatically is going to change when we start working on the sun sign weaknesses, moon sign weaknesses, and their potentials, and using different kind of astrological aspects in this and life coaching techniques to be able to help the person actually to overcome the weaknesses of their sign, the weaknesses of their sun sign, for example, the weaknesses of their moon sign, for example. What can be the weaknesses of the sun sign? Let's say that the sun, um, let's say that the sun Leo. So the good thing about it is that those people are very creative, those people are very sportive, those people are very outspoken, they love being in the center of attention, but at the same time, the burning side, the burning and the negative side of the sun in Leo can make them very proud, can make them very narcissistic, can make them very self-centered, and I mean, like, eventually this way blind them, in a way, blind them of seeing things really in reality, not only from their own perspective, but from the, like, general perspective, so they can actually know how to act upon certain situations, so that they can find a better kind of relations with the people around them and with themselves, within themselves. The same thing that we can say, for example, with the moon sign. Let's say that the moon in a Scorpio, a great combination of a very intuitive, very spiritual, very deep, and very loyal people. But the negative aspect of the moon in Scorpio is that those people can be very secretive, very suspicious, non-trustworthy. They can find it really hard to trust people, and they're always suspicious. They can be extremely, extremely jealous, and it can be extremely difficult for people of moon and Scorpio control their emotions. And these are the disadvantages of the sign that the sign brings to the planet, just like it was in the first, in the first option where the sun was in Leo. So what happens is that the sign is usually brings and the positive and the negative traits of behavioral pattern into the planetary energy, or combines with the planetary energy. And the life coaching, astrological life coaching, is of course trying to start working with those, weaknesses, trying to turn them through the life coaching techniques into the strength, trying to help the people to see the situation differently, help your clientele to get the different approach to the situation, so that they can come out of that comfort zone of the same behavioral pattern that they've been doing over and over again through the years, but without seeing any good results of improving themselves or putting themselves out or being able just to grow spiritually, mentally, as well as not physically, and even on in the life perspective. So that's why I've decided to make this video today a little bit, trying to explain to you that actually there is a lot more to tarot cards and there's a lot more to astrology than only reading your sign, reading the horoscopes, and or just doing the readings for just individual situations and then expecting, the prediction of the future. There's actually a lot more to it. And if we actually dive into the tarot cards and astrology, just like any other esoterical tools, esoterical skills, then we can actually find how helpful it can be if we know how to use them in our everyday life and how to use them correctly, but not taking advantage of them and also not taking them like um, too much of a with a joke, or let's say that we're not taking them serious. You need to understand that when we actually get more deeply spiritually involved into something, whatever it is, then sooner or later it's going to start basically it's going to start showing us the results, the fruits that it's going to bring on the table. So guys, once again, thank you so much for watching this video. I tried to clarify for you a little bit today what can you actually do with tarot cards or astrology besides the idea of predicting the future, or besides the idea of seeing what's coming up. Because right at the beginning of the video, I also tried to explain to you in a logical way how the tarot cards actually work and how they can be turned into a predictive tool if we take a look at them from that perspective, bringing an example to you earlier. So guys, feel free to leave your comments if you found this video somehow useful. Also, don't forget to go and check out my link tree down below that I'm going to leave. Feel free to subscribe to my channel and put the like if you found this video quite useful, informative, or in general you found it interesting. And of course, I'm going to be back with you soon with another tarot or astrological reading. Stay well.